Hello and welcome to the Impact 30 webinar series. My name is David King. I am one of the regional directors here at Impact Utah, and today's lesson will be on setting and measuring expectations. If anyone is experiencing any AV issues or isn't able to hear us, please reach out to us using the chat button below. We'll try our best to address those issues. Additionally, if during the presentation you have any questions or something that comes up that you want answered, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of the window as well. Today, our presenter is Ryan Mecham. He is one of our managing directors here at Impact Utah. And in all summary, he helps manufacturers improve outcomes. He applies principles of Lean and Six Sigma to improve throughput, quality, employee satisfaction, and more. He helps transform people from problem finders to problem solvers. Ryan guides our team as well as other teams in the field in delivering continuous improvement and services designed to propel our clients into increased productivity, quality, and profitability. With that, Ryan, I will turn the time over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, David, and thank you for that kind introduction. Welcome to everyone who is joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and start and share this so we can all see together. You should be able to see the slideshow. There we go. Very good. So we're going to talk about setting and measuring expectations today. We want to make sure that really you get a lot of advantages of being able to take something concrete and take it back to your company that you can implement, not just for your company, but also for your department and for you as individuals. And so we want to talk about this concept of setting and measuring expectations, because it's all about achieving maximum results in a way that treats people well. Continuous improvement is really this idea about we're going to achieve, and we're going to do it in a way that respects people. That's a very important concept with what we do. So when we talk about expectations, the irony is that leaders actually don't motivate people. Leaders create conditions in which people can motivate themselves, but a leader can't actually cause the motivation. So leaders create the conditions for others to motivate themselves. They do this by setting clear expectations, communicating the expectations, providing the support needed to meet the expectations, measuring performance against those expectations, and recognizing the efforts and actually achieving those expectations. So when we take a look at the big picture, we've got to look at the company as a whole. And you say, okay, well, what about setting and measuring expectations for the company as a whole? Well, those usually come into things like revenue or profit or cash flow. And then you also have departments that are trying to set and measure their own expectations as well, with on-time delivery, quality, leads as examples. And then you have individuals or the components making up the entire organization. They might be working on things like attendance or engagement or skills. And so these are some basic ideas. And really, we want to understand kind of where you are as a group. And so we've organized a quick, maybe 15-second survey. David, you want to take it from here?
You bet. We're going to ask our everyone on the call to answer kind of yes or no on these questions. Does your company have performance measures? Does your department have performance measures? And do you have individual performance measures? And I will get that poll launched up to the group here shortly.
So we're trying to get a good sense of where you stand. And I've got a guess about where things are based on experience. And we want to see how you as a group really come in on this so we can talk about then these concepts and what's going to help you the most. All right, so we've got the poll up. We'll leave it up for about 15 seconds. If you'll take just a few minutes and answer yes or no. Does your company have performance measures? Does your department? And then do you as an individual have performance measures? And then David will share the results with us.
All right, they are streaming in right now.
Okay,
Let's give it a couple more seconds here, Ryan.
all right.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close that out and share the results with everyone.
Let's take a look. That's exactly what we thought. So does your company have performance measures? 98% say yes, and 2% say no. That's a brave person who says, no, my company doesn't have performance measures. Number two, does your department, and we see the percentages go way down. It went from basically 100% down to 75%. And could you scroll up, David, so we can see the bottom one there?
You bet.
And on number three, do you have individual performance measures? Oh, let me make sure I can see that on my end here. And yeah, that went down slightly from 75% down to 69%. Perfect. So virtually everybody says that, hey, my company does. About 3/4 say that my department does, and about 2/3 say that we as individuals. And as a matter of fact, I would dare say that in a lot of organizations, the individual measures, if we were to dig down into that, probably isn't as much as we think. In other words, we think that we've got these individual performance measures, but we don't really know if what we're doing on a day-to-day basis actually ties in to what happens on the department or what happens on the company level. So let's talk about then 5 ways, tips, if you will, about setting those expectations. So we're going to go through each of these in turn. And if we think about the first one is emphasizing the objectives, and we'll talk here in just a minute about what the difference is between the objective and the key results. But the first step is to emphasize the objective. What is it we're trying to accomplish? Number two, set the expectations early. So early, in fact, as we bring people on board or as people change teams, we have a system where people are coming into that system and they're able to understand what their objectives and their key results are. Third step is we want to create employee accountability. In other words, we want to create systems that make these OKRs or objectives and key results visible to the team on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis. The fourth part we're going to talk about is giving meaningful feedback. And the fifth part is leveraging motivation. So to create a backbone of our conversation, everything really is about the OKR or the objective. The objective is the what it is we're trying to accomplish. And the KR is the key result. In other words, how do we know when we get measured, how do we know if we're actually on the path of accomplishing that objective? One way to think about this is I will accomplish X objective as measured by, a key result 1, key result 2, key result 3, and then by when. So let's go through and unpackage that in a little more detail. So the first thing we need to understand really is the objective. And when we're thinking about this objective, there's some really key characteristics to this. Does the objective reflect the target that you want to accomplish? Is it inspiring? Is it easy to understand? Does it align with corporate strategy? Is it qualitative? Is it actionable by the team independently? So rather than thinking about each one of these, let's go through some good examples of objectives and see if each one of these qualifies in those different areas. So what are some good examples? If we were working in the San Francisco area, for example, we might say, well, we want to own the widget market in the San Francisco area. In other words, the thing that we sell or make, we want to own our territory. So if we think, well, does that really reflect the target? Is this inspiring? I would say that if we had a group of people working in San Francisco, yeah, that's easy to understand. That objective is easy to understand, is also inspiring. Kill the competition next quarter. We might say, well, all right, does this align with the corporate strategy? Is our corporate strategy that we want to make an inroad on our competition? Then this is a good example of an objective. What about building a world-class team? Now that's really easy to understand. It's inspiring. It aligns with our corporate strategy. It's qualitative. It's something that we can put our arms around. It's not measurable, but we'll talk about that next. Now, get people to know who we are. If we're an organization, a company out there, we really want people to buy more of what we have to sell. We really have to get other people to get to know who we are. That is inspiring. It's a target that we want to accomplish. So it checks off a lot of those boxes. Here's another example. Become the leading electric electric car sales team. Is this, one of the questions is it actionable by the team independently? Well, yes, the sales team itself can own this. It's a qualitative, it's easy to understand, it's inspirational. Well, what about getting people knocking on our doors to work here? If we were trying to bring people in, we said one of our key objectives is that we're such an exciting company that we want people knocking on our doors to get here. So those are all good examples of objectives. And if we left the conversation there, the conversation would feel rather hollow, because now you're asking yourself, well, how do I know if I'm actually making progress on one of those areas? And that's where we get to the key result part of the OKR. So the objective, the idea behind it is simply to say, here's what it is we want to accomplish, but the key result, we have to have a number of elements. In other words, our key results, is it a SMART key result? And this is a well-known acronym, but is it specific? Is the key result measurable? Is it attainable? Is it relevant to the big thing that we're trying to accomplish? And is it time-bound? Another element of a key result is it a result and not just another activity? In other words, the key result, we want to envision what happens at the end of the period that we're measuring, not just some task or activity that happens during the course of trying to accomplish this objective. Does it help in achieving the objective that it belongs to? In other words, is this a stretch goal? Is this an operational goal? Does it really help us achieve the objective that it belongs to? So that has to be tied very tightly. Does it reveal how close you are to your objectives? So a good key result is measurable during the course of time, so you can see your progress over time and whether or not you're getting closer to the objective that you're trying to hit. Is it set aggressively enough that you're only about 50% likely to hit the target? And so it's aggressive enough that we're able to stretch and make sure that we can achieve it. Now, let's use an example and see if we can put all these together and then use these different elements to check and see if this is really a good OKR. So here's a good example. A lot of companies talk about putting their people and making sure they come first. So let's say our objective is our people come first. And this is something that we want to work on during the course of this year. We want better employee engagement. Well, if that was our objective, we would need to come up with a handful of key results to know, are we making progress to getting towards that objective? So for example, this key result number 1, decrease our attrition rate from 10% down to 5% in Q4. So now we're like, okay, so if we're trying to make sure that our people come first, then we really need to focus on our attrition rate. The way that we're going to envision what that looks like at the end of this measuring period, in this case Q4, we would want to take our current state from 10% down to 5%. Now let's go back to our checklist and make sure that this is meeting our needs. So let's look at the objective. Is the objective inspiring? Is it easy to understand? I would say yes to both of those. Is it qualitative? Yes, it is. So now let's go to our key results and use our check boxes and see how that comes out. Is this a SMART goal? Decrease attrition rate from 10% to 5%. Is it specific? Yes, indeed. Is it measurable? Well, yes, it is. Is it attainable? Well, that's always a debatable thing, but it's something that we would encourage the team to debate whether or not this is an attainable goal. Is it relevant to the big thing we're trying to accomplish as an organization? I would say yes. And is it time bound? Well, yes, because we've got a Q4 goal in here. So let's take a look at the second one. The second key result, increase employee NPS, which just stands for Net Promoter Score. In other words, the idea is, do our current employees encourage other people to also want to work for us as a company? And so let's say we were using that as a company as a measurement, and right now our current result was 63%. We could say, hey, by Q3, we want to make sure and get that from our 63% to 85%. Again, it's not a task or activity. We're looking at this key result as something that we would achieve at the end of this period, in this case, Q3. So it meets all of those necessary check marks. Our key result number 3, execute a minimum of 3 engagement activities in each department by the end of the year. Again, is that specific, measurable, attainable, relevant to the big picture? And is it time bound? Well, yes, it is to each one of those. Is it something we can measure during the course of the year to see whether or not we're getting closer to that objective? Yes, it does. So another way to look at this from a big picture perspective is to think about the objective as the big thing. It's the qualitative thing. It's the thing that we can easily understand. It's the goal that we can rally around. It's just something that we can understand. And then the key results are the components of that. Does each key result make sure that we can measure it and see whether or not we're getting closer to that objective? And we might create different initiatives out of those key results. We may say, hey, if this is the thing we're trying to accomplish in this quarter, what specific initiatives can we work on this week or this month in order to make sure we hit our quarterly goal? And then we can roll that down even further to incorporate those into the employee plan. So at the beginning, when we talked about the corporate, the department, and the individual expectations, one of the things where it often unhooks is there isn't a lot of connectivity between what the employee is expected to do on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis, and how does that roll up into the bigger things we're trying to accomplish as an organization. So the big idea behind the OKRs is that we create an environment where we have the objective we're trying to hit, and we're very clear on the daily activities and are we getting there to that key result. All right, so we don't want just this to be a one-way communication. We're going to take a few minutes, 3 to be exact, and we want you to now create an OKR using this format that we've talked about. Create an OKR for yourself, your department, or your company, and include both the objective and at least one key result. So if you're not familiar with this pattern, we're asking you to use this pattern. So think about an objective. It's got to be qualitative, something that you can achieve, that at least, a 50% probability in achieving. Is it inspirational? Is it qualitative? And those key results, does the key result make sure that we can, is it smart? Is it attainable? Can we measure? Can we see our progress to that? So I'm going to start the timer here and give you 3 minutes. And then at the end of the 3 minutes, we're going to give you an opportunity if you would like to share some of those that you came up with, or if you already use the OKRs, it might be something that you're doing. And David will lead us through that as soon as our 3 minutes is up.
You bet. I will keep an eye on that chat. And if anyone's feeling like they want to share, go ahead and plug that in.
Love it. So as you're thinking about that, again, I'll go over kind of those key areas as you're thinking about the objective. Those objectives should be something that is that reflects on the bigger things that the organization is trying to accomplish. The objective should be inspiring. We should make sure that it's something that we can rally around that call. Is it easy to understand? Is it something that all of the team members, whether it's on the company, department, level, is it something that we can all rally around? Does it align with the corporate strategy? Does that objective align with what we're trying to accomplish?
Ryan, we had one participant, Morgan, answered in the Q&A box that their objective is to become a more knowledgeable HR professional. I'd be interested to know what the KRs, those key
results. No, and David, you're asking the right question. So if you're thinking about, if that's the objective, what are going to be the key results you're going to couple with that objective to know how well you're progressing on that path?
Additionally, we had somebody type in that one of their objectives is to have 0 incidents or safety incidents this year. Another wonderful objective.
Brilliant. And what kind of key results are you going to do that? In other words, if you're going to have 0 reportable safety incidences, usually you're thinking about how do we capture those things earlier on before they become a challenge? And so your key results. So, the objective could be as simple as create a safe environment. That's qualitative. It's inspiring. Everybody can understand that. And then our key results along with that could be to capture X number of near misses or ideas that we're going to use in order to prevent those safety problems from happening in the first place. Love it. Please keep adding to the chat.
Ryan, we've got one more that just came in, and it was was to perform at least 3 6S audits per area per month. So it sounds like that might be along the lines of the KR in the key results, right? A way to measure that.
Exactly. That's a great key result. And so the objective, again, think about something inspiring, something that the team can rally around in order to say, hey, this is the thing that we're rallying around. This is the objective. And then yes, we're going to use those key results to measure that. Anything else pop up, David?
We've got one OKR to create a long-term sustainable business.
Okay.
And the key result is to improve cash flow by decreasing accounts receivables by 10% by end of year.
Perfect. I was going to say, is there a time-bound element to that? I love it. So that's here's an objective. Here's something we can rally around, and here's how we're going to measure it. And we can see the progress over that over the course of time. Brilliant. Now we're going to have some time for question and answer afterwards. And so I want to make sure we're going to keep going and hitting our steps number 2 through 5 in the next couple of minutes. Then we're going to leave some time here at the end for some Q&A. So thank you for those who felt comfortable enough in providing us some ideas of the things that you specifically were working on. I think that's wonderful. Now, as we mentioned early on, one of the ideas is we want to make sure that to set the expectations early. In other words, about creating expectations is making sure that our team members, as soon as they join the team, understand where they fit in the organization, and they can internalize the company objectives and key results, the department objectives and key results, so that they can then merge that into their individual objectives and key results so that they line up. And so whether or not that employee is brand new coming into the company that's never been with us before, or it's an internal transfer, someone has worked over in department A, now they're over in department B, but you as a leader need to set aside time so that you're bringing on, and those expectations are understood early on in the experience. Now, let's say you don't have any transfers or you don't have new people coming in. Well, it's never too late to start. And sometimes we just need to reset ourselves as an organization with our existing team and keep in mind that system about bringing people in as new people join. Third idea, we want to make sure to create a system that reinforces this accountability. This is one idea that many, especially manufacturing companies, use. And this idea is called a tier huddle idea, where your frontline people are meeting together. Let's say it's at 7 o'clock and they're doing a shift change and they're going to get some information from the last. Well, if you're going to have a frontline huddle, you ought to make sure that your OKRs, your objectives and key results are front and center, the company objectives and the department objectives, so that in the very next huddle, which is what you see in the next column at 7:30, is when you're taking the results from what just happened either the night before or the prior shift, and it's rolling up into the department. And so the department is coming together at 7:30 and looking at those OKRs, and then the leadership, or the tier 3, which is what you see in the third column at the 8 o'clock, that idea is that every department is rolling up their OKRs on a systematic basis. So this is one way of making sure that all cylinders are being hit, and that everybody understands that the OKRs are not just something that we talk about occasionally, but you need to build systems in order for those OKRs to be talked about on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. It's all about creating the right systems. The fourth idea is to give meaningful feedback. We included this as an example because it's actually the one we use as actual practice here at iMpact Utah. And the way that it goes is this. First of all, we would ask, what feedback do you have for me about XYZ? So if you're focused on these objectives and you're trying to hit this objective, let's say we're trying to make this a more employee-friendly environment. So I could ask my team member, or I could ask someone that I work with, well, what feedback do you have me about how well I'm doing on this objective that we're all working on? And it gives the opportunity for the respondent in the second box to say, well, here's how I feel where you demonstrate X, Y, and Z. So it's a way to show appreciation about what's going well. Box number 3 in the lower left-hand corner is an idea that talks about constructive feedback. So here's how I feel that you can show it even more, or help us get to this objective even more. And then the person who asked the question to begin with in box number 4 simply says, thank you for the feedback. So this meaningful feedback is a process by which we can make sure and get to where people need to go. And our last one that we want to talk about is leveraging motivation. We want to make sure and understand what drives our people. Some people love public recognition. Great. When we accomplish these things, let's make sure that we get to that point where everybody understands what motivates, whether it's being recognized, whether it's a gift certificate, whether it's just simply a private acknowledgement, but let's understand how our different team members are motivated. So last thought to think about is exceptional leaders are fearless in setting and commuting expectations. We are fearless about doing this. And so we want to make sure and get feedback from you, and everything that we do here in Impact Utah is about continuous improvement. So if you'll use this QR code and provide us some feedback, and so we want to do a Q&A at the same time that you're doing your evaluation. So David, take it away. We've got 5 minutes left here. So as people are doing the evaluations, let's make sure and reserve some time for questions.
Thank you so much, Ryan. And I wanted to thank everybody for joining us today for our first series of the Impact 30 webinar. This has been setting and measuring expectations. And if you enjoyed this presentation and are eager to learn more, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or anyone else on our team via our website. Additionally, next month we will be covering teamwork and collaboration on February 16th. So I encourage you to go to our website and log in and register for that as well. We've included a feedback survey link in the chat, and then it's also present on the screen. If you have a moment, in the spirit of continuous improvement, let us know how we did. Let us know how we can do better. Additionally, please expect a follow-up email after this presentation, again with the survey link and an opportunity to download the content from today's presentation. With that, I'm going to move over to the chat and see if we have any questions coming in, Ryan. We're also going to remain online probably until, let's see, 11:40, 11:35, if anyone wants to have any additional discussions. And it doesn't look like anyone has reached out with any questions yet, Ryan. Thank you to Glade for joining us.
Perfect. I'm just putting that back up here. We received feedback that the music was loud, so I was taking that off and putting that back on. So
okay.
Hopefully that's taken care of. So comments, questions, thoughts? Did we have any anything come in, David?
We haven't had anything come in on the chat side of things, Ryan, but I'm kind of curious, can you apply these same principles to your personal life and thinking about the new year and new year resolutions? Surely we could map this to things on our personal side, right?
Well, of course, and let's take the most common one that people think about in January, right? Which is about losing weight. So you're like, okay, well, what's my objective? And if there's a difference between a negative and a positive objectives. There's a difference between losing weight versus feeling great, or getting my health, or but if you think about a qualitative statement that really motivates you, and you think about this is really something I'd like to accomplish, that from a positive standpoint, then what kind of key results, what kind of day-to-day activities are you going to do in order to meet that need? Another one might be financial, right? You might say, okay, well, I'm gonna make more. I want to feel financially secure. That might be your objective. And so one of the things to do that is to put some key results on, well, what debt are you going to pay off? What specific bills are you going to do by what kind of time? What changes in your spending are you going to make sure in order to do that? So those are two examples that I can think of off the top of my head about how we can apply the OKR idea down to that. And I can see we're down to our last few seconds.
We did get one question come in, so I want to make sure we can address this before we log off today.
So let's make sure that if we've met our time, and so if people want to log off, that's great. We're going to stay on for another 10 minutes or so and talk about more Q&A for anybody who would like to stay here. So would that be a fair comment, David?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Let's dive into this question here, Ryan. Can you offer any feedback on setting expectations and associated rewards. We don't want things to backfire on rewards.
Yeah,
And this is wonderful. Set a safety program reward,
Yep.
and then not incentivize folks to hide
Yep.
accidents or near misses.
No, I love the question. Let me take you a little bit on my own leadership journey. When I was a chief operating officer at a manufacturing plant, we had, both throughput concerns as well as quality concerns. And so, as well as continuous improvement, we thought, well, what are some things we can do to help incentivize people to bring forward ideas? And at first, our minds went to that external motivating factor. If we get some, near misses, or if we get some ideas, can we give out gift cards, which we did, and that worked for a period of time. And the danger with using external or exclusively external is that people begin to expect that. And as you pointed out, from a safety perspective, what you don't want to do is you don't want to create an objective that says we're going to be safe, and our key result is 0 accidents. The danger that drives is that people will hide accidents as they happen, which is the exact opposite that you want to do. So you may want to think about key results in terms of how many near misses can we catalog, or how many times can we do a safety walk or a safety inspection, or any of those ideas that would be proactive, where people are thinking about problems that might exist. Or could exist under certain circumstances that you could then proactively work out of the system. So those are the kind of things, those are the key results that really drive a good safety behavior, rather than thinking about we're going to be 100% safety, because people, when something does happen, they want to hide it, which is the exact opposite of the thing we want to achieve. Love the question.
Awesome. Ryan, I've got one more for you here. This is an interesting one. I've experienced this in my own career, but do you have any advice for setting expectations for employees with varying workloads on day-to-day basis? So I'm assuming this is not a widget factory, right? Mm-hmm. And how do we quantify that?
Yeah, so one of the things that that we need to think about in terms of our objectives and our key results is it doesn't necessarily, even though we've got this great objective, it doesn't necessarily apply to all people at all times. And one of the things we want to be very cognizant of is how well does our cross-training actually happen, whether it's in an office environment or out on the floor, because we can have objectives and we can be working on something as a team, but it could create these bottlenecks of activity that if only 1 or 2 or 3 of our team members are involved in a certain activity for a short amount of time, that is an excellent candidate to ask ourselves, what can we do to bring in person numbers 4, 5, and 6 under these conditions so that we can flow people in? And then from an individual standpoint, we're asking people to think about their objective of teamwork. What kind of teamwork are we doing so that we make sure that we're supporting one another at the appropriate time, and that we're not, as an organization, as a department, or as a company, creating such intense work environment that we're burning people out. We want to ask ourselves, how well can we predict when certain activities are going to happen and certain team members are going to be overburdened, so that we can create a cross-training matrix, knowing what other people we need to cross-train to bring in. Quick example, I was working with a company that was doing this from an invoicing. They were struggling to make sure they got all of their invoicing processed within a certain period of time. And what was happening is it was creating a lot of work for a handful of people for a short amount of time. One of the things they wanted to do to improve that was cross-train additional people to take that workload for that period. And by doing certain things in parallel instead of in series, we were able to take that from a 16-day process down to an 11-day process, which made all the difference for their team members who were suffering under that very intense amount of work, to the point they couldn't even take time off. And sometimes they couldn't even celebrate the holidays because they got called back into work in order to meet that need. And so by cross-training more people, it made a better environment, so they were able to get the objective done and call on more people at different times of in that cycle.
Tremendous. I haven't seen any other questions come through, Ryan. Let's be available for a few more minutes. See if anybody else has any, and then we'll we'll sign off.
And if you haven't done your evaluation, please do that. We are all, because we're a continuous improvement organization, we're always looking for feedback, and really appreciate the time that you've spent with us, and appreciate those few minutes to give us an evaluation.
I don't see any others coming in.
Okay,
Right.
well, that's fair.
We've given a fairly wide window for some Q&A, but I appreciate the discussion so far, and with that, let's go ahead and close things out for today. Thanks again, Ryan.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you on behalf of all of us at Impact Utah. Thank you for coming.